Life is difficult for migrant farm workers who work long, back-breaking hours for little pay. And for the many who are undocumented, they live under constant threat of deportation. But things have changed, and with the help of people of faith, farm workers and their families are standing up for their rights. For more, we welcome Olga Sierra Sandman, past president of the National Farm Worker Ministry. We also welcome Areri Undueto Carrasco, a founding member of the Immigrant Youth Justice League. And we welcome Maddie Scherer, a member of St. John Episcopal Church in Chicago, who is a part of a group who traveled to Washington State to raise awareness of migrant workers. Thank you. I'm glad you all could be here today. Maddie, first, tell us about your trip to Washington.
We went there just to learn about migrant workers, and we worked on a farm for about 4 hours, and was insanely tiring. But then we also, most of the week was devoted to raising money and food and just donations for a food drive, which we hosted for migrant workers. And I think we serviced like 170 families for the food drive. So it was an amazing, amazing experience.
What did you learn about family life for migrant workers?
Well, the family that I really got to know well was a girl named Helen, and she lived in Texas for a while, and then every summer she would go up to Seattle, to Washington to work with her family. And their family was 8 people, and they lived in pretty much a 3-room house. It was really, really small, and it was with a lot of other people. And it was right by the farm, so I mean it didn't smell very good, and
okay. It
was a hard life to live. And she worked about 4 a.m. to about 5 every day, and
so a long day. What were they picking while you were there?
Strawberries.
Okay.
And so her hands were dyed with purple, and her knees were bruised from like kneeling on the ground picking strawberries. And she was paid approximately 20 cents per pound of strawberries, which is about 5% of the market cost of a pound of strawberries, that's not a lot of money.
Pretty unfair.
Yeah, no, it's completely unfair, yeah.
How did people like Helen cope with this kind of a life?
Well, she seemed really happy and grateful. I mean, it was really fun to be with her, and like she was a really happy person, but she was very unhappy about how she was treated as a human being.
And did that affect your faith?
Totally. I mean, it changed my life, how I looked at how much money I spend. For example, we were given the amount of money we would have been paid for our work, which was $8, and we had 5 people to feed. And so we went to a grocery store, and when I got back, I went to Starbucks with my mom and spent $8 on a snack. So, I mean, that changed my life, and in my faith, just how much stronger they were than sometimes I can be, like how much I complain sometimes. I mean, since then I would like to say that I complain less, hopefully, but just my faith changed because I knew that other people were stronger than me and that I had to live up to that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why do you think it's an important thing for young people to learn about?
Well, I think it's important that we know about who's growing our food and who is working in this nation, and I mean how much they do. So I think it's important that youth stand up for that and know about it.
Well, I'm glad you had that opportunity, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Sure, of course.
Areri, tell us about the Immigrant Youth Justice League.
So the Immigrant Youth Justice League is a Chicago-based organization. It started out as a group of people who got together to stop the deportation of one of our friends, and ever since then we kind of saw how amazing it felt to be able to be open about our statuses and to actually like be able to do things to challenge the way that undocumented immigrants are seen in mainstream media, but also more directly sort of things that very immediately affect our lives, right? Such as like the deportation of one of our friends.
It's pretty close to home.
Yeah, and so ever since then, we have been doing a variety of work, including education around college access for undocumented students. Last year, we did a lot of work around the DREAM Act, which would allow a pathway to citizenship for undocumented students, but also always keeping in mind that the population of undocumented people in the U.S., right, is very, very varied, right? There's people that do all types of work. There's people from all different parts of the world. And knowing that we were just a small segment and thinking about the privileges that we've had that other people didn't necessarily have, and how could we use those in order to sort of make it better for everybody, I guess I would say. Because one of the things about the group that I work with is that it is primarily young. Most of us are bilingual because we've grown up here pretty much our whole lives, and we have a little bit of an idea of how to navigate the different institutions, right? A lot of us we're in high school and are trying to figure out how to get through college. I myself have already graduated from college.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. And so helping other undocumented students be able to continue their education the way that they want to and navigate through that process, which is really difficult. And also making sure that we are thinking about like the population at large and how it is that we can make things better, I guess, for everyone.
What are some of the activities other than the DREAM Act, or what did you do to help with the DREAM Act, I guess, as a start?
Well, the DREAM Act is not our only focus, right? Actually, we haven't been focusing on it this year, but I think our main focus is being able to get people to tell their stories, whether that is to just like their friends or whether that is in a more public way. We've organized what we call Coming Out of the Shadows events on March 10th. We just had our second one last year, in which young undocumented people, and last year we added one of our allies, stood. It was in this plaza out here. This is Daily Plaza.
Yes.
And the year before that, it was at Federal Plaza, and we just sort of told our stories, right? And like, my name is Ireri, I'm undocumented. Like, here's what I have to say to the rest of the world who's listening, I guess. And we've also actually organized civil disobediences by and with undocumented youth.
Olga, you have a long history with the immigration issue. Tell us a little bit about the ministry involvement.
Well, first of all, I'm an immigrant too.
Okay.
I came from Mexico as a student. Later on, I married and I'm a citizen. But I got involved with the farm worker ministry when I was still young and a student. And the ministry, the name of it is the National Farm Worker Ministry. It used to be called National Migrant Ministry. It began in 1920 when the people in the fields were Eastern European people instead of from Mexico or so. This is in the East Coast where it began. In 1970, the ministry was celebrating the 50th and the 5 decades of service. And most of the programs were to serve and help the migrant families throughout the country, from border to border. And in 1970, we received a very strong direct challenge from Cesar Chavez, who was organizing in California.
Okay.
And he said, you know, what do we want from the church? We don't want your cathedrals, we don't want your fancy services. We want you to come like Jesus did, go with the people, where the people are struggling. And there was a response, and eventually we discontinued all the programs we had for several reasons. You know, we were having, for instance, school for the children and recreation for the young people, and that was not changing anything. It was being good service to the families, but not changing anything. And now with Chavez organizing, they wanted to change the agricultural system. They wanted to be treated with more respect and dignity. They wanted to have better wages. Chavez used to say, you know, I'm not as interested on a basket of food or a box of clothes that somebody gives me. I want to make enough money so that I can buy those things for my family. In Florida, we work very closely with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers.
Okay.
They are tomato pickers in what's the tomato capital of the United States. And they have gone not on organizing a union, but of bringing in all the people all the industry that uses tomato, like they began with the fast food industry. And it takes years, but they were able to bring Taco Bell to the table, and McDonald's, and Burger King,
and make
and
some real
Subway,
change.
And have agreements that they would pay 1 penny more per pound of tomatoes.
Well, it's such a big issue. I'd like to thank you, Olga and Ireri and Maddie, for being here today and for your gift of advocacy and sharing your stories. I'm Polly Toner for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.